The coronavirus is upon us. The audience wants to know how we can prepare ourselves and potentially survive this pandemic outbreak. Right off the top, what's the number one thing that we can do to help ourselves?
Well, the first thing you can do to help yourself is to be prepared. This is why we talked about this before, Russell, about the need to have, basic supplies and certainly at least 3 weeks worth of food in the house. And the reason for that is exactly what's coming up with this possible pandemic. Now, the worry is that people will get nervous, even if this pandemic isn't as terrible as the Spanish fever, the Spanish flu in the 1800s. Even if it's not as dangerous as the bubonic plague, it doesn't matter. It's about public perception. And we see now in China, Wuhan has been closed down. In addition to another additional 30 cities, over 65 million people are quarantined. That means nothing's coming in, nothing's coming out. Now, how much food do you think people have stockpiled in their homes? You can't go shopping. There's videos coming out of China showing these big mega cities that would, under normal conditions, be packed elbow to elbow with people and cars. Now it looks like a post-apocalyptic scene. There's nobody on the streets. There's no cars. None of the stores are open. And it's not because the flu killed everybody off, but it's because everybody's very nervous about the flu, so they're all staying home. And since the city has been cut off, with no trucks delivering food to the grocery stores inside the city, how long do you think these people are going to last? And this is why, the best thing to do for any situation, whether it's a pandemic or a grid down or an ice storm, the basic requirements you need to have is at least 3 weeks and preferably 3 months worth of food. If you have that in your house, then your best strategy for preventing yourself and your family from becoming sick from the flu or any other kind of pandemic is to stay at home.
Are you saying that the fear is greater than the virus itself?
I think so. I really do, because already we see what's going on in China, and now surrounding countries are closing their borders to Chinese immigrants. There's videos coming out of China of small towns where guys are standing on the side of the road with old medieval halberds, chasing off anybody that's trying to get into their village for fear that they carry the disease. I mean, it's the fear that will shut it down. And when it shuts down, we all shut down, because now people aren't going into work. And maybe the firemen and the doctors and the nurses, and they're all on the front line. They are in danger of getting this disease first. Maybe they'll stay home. And if they stay home, and the people that run the machinery stay home, and the truck drivers stay home, and the grocery store clerks stay home, well, what you have essentially is a grid down situation. No emergency services, no extra food. So you're on your own, folks. You have to protect yourself, you have to look after yourself, and you have to feed yourself. That's what would happen just based on the fear of this virus.
Are they doing the right thing by staying home?
It's called social distancing, and it's standard practice during a pandemic. Basically, social distancing means that you stay home. You don't go to events, you don't go to the grocery store, you don't go to concerts, you don't go to the library or the shopping mall. You stay home, because there's really not much you can do to prevent yourself from catching this virus. Now, I know they're selling the masks everywhere, and well, those masks are useless. Even my doctor friend in San Antonio says that, yeah, they have the masks there, but the virus is much smaller than the filter on the mask.
Mm-hmm.
They're recommending an N95 respirator, which is not a respirator. And what it is just a paper mask. And the theory is that an N95 will filter out 95% of particles greater than 3 microns. But the virus is like barely 1 micron. So if it's airborne, the dust mask isn't going to help you. The second problem with the masks is they don't fit tightly around your face. You need to pinch the little metal part really tight around your nose, and even then there's gaps. Air is going to come in, and when air comes in, it's going to possibly contain the virus. So the masks are really pretty useless, not unless you get a full face shield respirator. That'll help you. The second thing you can do is wear glasses, wear sunglasses, because one of the most common ways to become infected by the virus is through your eyes. So if you wear glasses, that would help, but really, both the glasses and the N95 respirators are practically useless. So your best way to protect yourself is just not to go out in public. So the kids don't go to school, you don't go to school, you don't go to the office, you don't go to the shop. You basically camp out in your house, in your apartment, for the next 2 weeks and see how it goes from there. Typically, these pandemics go in waves, so you'll have a wave of infections, and that'll go on for about a month, and then it will seem to drop off, but they come back in a second wave and sometimes a third wave. So even if things look like they're okay a week from now, the rate of infections is going down, people are recovering, still be careful because it can come back more virulent than before. So always practice social distancing anyways.
And you feel the time for that is now, not 5 days from now.
You should be doing that all the time anyways. You should always be practicing social distancing and anti-pandemic hygiene. And I'll tell you why. This is going to sound a little bit conspiratorial, but we know that the deep state, the globalists, they want to get rid of us. They want to get rid of a goodly number of useless eaters. And the simplest and most effective way to do that without destroying infrastructure or wealth is to release a virus. And because a virus can take down 25-30% of the population, maybe more, and will leave no residual effects. The elite, of course, will have already been vaccinated against this virus, and they'll be holed up in their castles with plenty of food and servants. So they have no fear of the releasing a virus onto the general population. Now, the problem with this is if there is a long incubation period, normally influenza viruses have a 1 to 3 day incubation period. So you might get infected today, but it'll be 2 days before you start to exhibit the signs of a cold or a flu. In the meantime, you're infectious. So for 2 days, you can walk around. You don't think there's anything wrong with you. You're fine. You're healthy. Meanwhile, you're infecting everybody you come in contact with. So that's pretty dangerous. But if you have an incubation period of more than like 5 days, and they're thinking with this coronavirus, it could be 5 to 10 days incubation period. That means people are walking around infecting everybody they come into contact with for 10 days before they start to get sick. Now, if the globalist deep state lunatics that run this world wanted to get rid of us, then it would be nothing for them to release one of these viruses with a long-term incubation period. So what that would mean, theoretically, is you and I are talking here right now, we're both fine. We don't know that we were already infected last week. And then in 3 days from now, we could both be dead. That's how it worked with the Spanish flu. They got infected, but it killed them quickly, 3 days. Once they started exhibiting the signs of being sick, it took them about 3 days to kill them. So if you don't constantly practice personal hygiene and social distancing, we could have already been infected. So you should do this all the time. It should be ongoing. It's not a big deal. It just means when you're out in public, you never touch your face, because you're handling doorknobs, you're opening doors, you're closing doors, you're handling groceries, you're walking along rails, you hang onto the rail on the escalator, you push elevator buttons, you push, debit machine buttons. So you're infected, okay, because there's been 1,000 people through that store before you, and if there's any kind of a virus going around, guaranteed all those surfaces are contaminated. Now, you will only transfer that virus into your body if you use your hands to touch your face. If you rub your eyes, you'll be infected through the eyes. If you pick your nose, you'll be infected through the nose. If you touch your mouth, it'll come into your mouth. And even if you touch your ears, it can come in through your ears. So the key is to never touch your face when you're in public. And if you just make that sort of an unconscious habit, you will prevent yourself from being infected. Even, and again, they could release this virus and nobody knows anything about it, and half the country's infected in a week, and then suddenly people start dropping dead. So the only way to prevent that is this social distancing now, and it should be an ongoing discipline with you to always wash your hands, don't touch your face.
So wearing surgical gloves won't necessarily help you.
It's exactly. So you could dip your hands in liquid virus and you won't get infected. It's not going through the skin. It has to be transferred to a mucous membrane area, which is the eyes, nose, mouth, and.
When is it time to go to the hospital, to the local clinic?
I would say it's never a good time to go to a hospital. I really just, I know too much about what goes on in hospitals to really want to risk my life going to a hospital. You're more likely to come down with an infection by visiting a hospital than if you had an infection. A local clinic is probably a little bit better. If like a walk-in clinic, then okay, go there if you're feeling the signs of influenza coming on. If there's no giant lineup or anything, but once this starts to hit, if it does, and a lot of people start to get panicked and they all start going to the hospital and the clinic, then forget about it because they won't be able to help you anyways. And even if you aren't sick, going to the hospital will guarantee that you will get sick. So, while it's, the first few people are getting sick, okay, if there's, room, there's not a big lineup, people aren't panicking, emptying store shelves, okay, go to the clinic, get it checked out. Could be all kinds of things.
Okay, so I'm at home. I'm going to stay home. What foods should I be stocking up with?
Well, whatever food you like to eat.
Sushi? Chinese takeout?
Yeah, so long as it's in a can. I know a lot of people like the freeze-dried stuff, the MREs and all that, but, that's good for like long-term storage, but for the first 3 months, you want to eat food that you would actually eat. I asked my wife to get some stockpiled foods, and I left it in her hands, and I recently looked at what we got, and it's all kidney beans. Oh my God,
Right.
I know kidney beans are healthy for you, but really, I want to eat kidney beans every day, all day for the next 3 weeks? No, I don't. So I would suggest just getting food that you like. As long as it's in a can, it's okay. Because like I said, a can, even, you're good 5 years past the best by date. And all you need to do is keep it around for a year. And if everything's okay a year from now, then start to eat what you have in the cans and buy new cans to replace it with. You're good for another 10 years.
Okay, let's say society starts breaking down. No one's leaving their houses. It's a ghost town out there. Will things like electricity and water still be available?
Maybe yes, maybe no. And that's the unpredictability of it. Right now, they're still running the hydro into Wuhan, but everything else is more or less broken down. The hospitals can't handle the people. Like I said, the streets are deserted. It's eerie to see this video footage of these cities now, like Shanghai, same thing, Disneyland in Beijing, it's a ghost town. It looks like that movie, like a zombie movie or something. It's and especially knowing how crowded China is. Mm-hmm. So to see these cities completely emptied. So okay, it's empty. How long before the guys that are attending the nuclear power plant that is providing electricity to your city decide it's not worth the risk to go into work today? That's what you have to think about.
Do people need to be at the electrical station for the electricity to still be supplied?
Mm-hmm. As far as I understand it. I know it's all automated, but you need maintenance. There's always got to be somebody around there to keep an eye on things, you can automate it all you want, but same thing like those self-driving cars. But how many of them crash? You know, with all the AI technology they put in there, they can still barely drive a car. So running a nuclear power plant, yeah, it might all be automated, but I would think it's more complicated than running a car. And you need somebody there's with a human intellect to be able to override and troubleshoot anything that could go wrong. So I would guess the automated system would recognize when there's nobody there maintaining, doing regular maintenance, and it would shut itself down out of safety concerns. That would be my guess.
Do we join community groups? Is it better to go lone wolf?
Well, you should already be part of a community group anyways. And if you practice, hygiene, which is, for example, the masks are useful if you are sick. So whoever is sick, get them to wear the mask because the mask will help them from expelling the water droplets that will contain the virus. It won't stop the droplets from entering you if you're a healthy person, but it will reduce the amount of droplets expelled through the breath of a person who's already sick. So you make sure that whoever's sick is already wearing a mask. You maintain your distance, and you maintain the hygiene, and so you can still work together. But it would be a similar protocol when dealing with a chemical attack. You need to disinfect the person before they come into the major living space. So if you're working together, you can work together, but before you can let somebody who's sick into your house, you have to kind of direct them into, say, the garage, and there get them to remove their clothes, wash them down, give them fresh, clean clothes, and make sure that they wear a mask, and then they can come into the rest of the house. Because that way, this would be the same procedure, decontamination procedure, if you were outside and you were suddenly under a chemical attack and you had, powdered residue on your clothes or something from a chemical attack, or even radiation fallout. This is, pretty standard decontamination procedure. So before you can interact, you have to set up a little bit of a barrier, and it's only in that barrier, that enclosed area, where you clean up, you dispose of the infected clothing or potentially infected clothing, stick it right away in a wash tub with some bleach, right? Then you're safe to work together.
But not safe to work alone.
It depends on how tough you are. It really does. When you read these stories of the first explorers across Canada, the voyageurs, the mountain men, my God, I have no idea what kind of men these were. They're on a level I can't even imagine. They went out, no trails, no roads, no settlements, no towns, no villages. They just plowed through bush for 1,000 miles, dragging a canoe with them. And they did it, many of them did it living there alone. I mean, there's stories that they went a little bit crazy, but they did it alone. And those conditions are far worse than anything we are going to face in the near future. I mean, to be, in the middle of the Rockies in the wintertime, alone, 3,000 miles from the nearest village or town. Oh my God, these guys they were animals. So they did it. They survived it. We could too, but, and whatever we're going to face coming up won't be as bad as being a mountain man in the Rockies. But still, it's, we're as men, we're just not that tough anymore. I'm a pretty tough guy, but I'm not that tough. I look at what our ancestors had to live through, and I can't imagine how strong these guys were. So if you're a tough guy, you'd probably be okay. Yeah.
Should we be stockpiling in weapons?
Well, of course, everybody should have a 50 caliber Browning machine gun and some grenade launchers. And well, I'll tell you the thing with guns and me. I think everybody should have a gun, but I think it doesn't matter what kind of a gun you have. Even if it's a single shot, bolt action 22 with a pink stock. You ever seen those? They call them a cricket. I think they're so cute. You can buy them for your 12-year-old daughter. The whole thing is pink. And it's a 22 caliber long rifle, single shot, bolt action. I mean, this is not by any stretch of the imaginations an assault rifle. But the thing is, a gun, any gun, is better than no gun. And the reason for that is a gun is a threat display. And threat display behavior tends to rule the day. So, and we've seen this. I don't know if you've ever watched those CCTV footage of people whose houses have been broken into by home invaders, and they grabbed a gun and shot back. It's funny as hell, some of these videos. I remember one. It was a Chinese woman in San Francisco, and four guys burst into her door. They all had guns. Four guys burst into her door, ran into the living room, and she grabbed a pistol and started shooting. All four guys ran like hell to get out of the place. They ran so hard they actually bumped into each other, and they fell on the ground, and they smashed through the door. They didn't even have time to open up the screen door. They just went smashing through the door. They piled into their car. They drove off. They left one guy on the side of the road, So, and I think she actually did end up shooting one of them and killing them. But the thing is, the minute they heard that shot, they were out of there. And I've seen this with a lot of these home invasion videos. 3, 4, 5 guys burst through the front door, and the homeowner happened to have the gun handy. Or as they were trying to kick in the door, they fired one round through the door. And then every time, boom, they're running out of there as fast as they can. They trip over each other. They, push each other out of the way. I mean, there's no honor among thieves then, And the key to that is you have a firearm now. You are as big a threat to them as they are to you. If you're unarmed and they burst down the door and they all got guns, what are you going to do? Yell at them? That's not going to work. But even if you have a simple 22 caliber bolt action rifle and you shoot one round through the door, they hear the gun go off. They see the bullet coming out through the door. They're out of there. So for that reason, I would say, yeah, get a gun, but you don't need assault rifles. You don't need grenade launchers. It's not going to be like that. There's not going to be, running battles in the street. It's not a video game, In real life, most people are cowards. And so even if you fire a shot overhead up into the air, 99 out of 100 times, that's all you'll need to discourage them. Because it's really simple. Are we going to mess with this guy who's got a gun, or are we going to go next door where the guy probably doesn't have a gun? We're going to go next door. That's how it works.
What staples should we get?
I would say, so I got rice, okay? And pasta. Pasta keeps forever. Get lots of spaghetti. It's cheap, and or macaroni bits or whatever. It doesn't matter. Get as much pasta as you can because it keeps forever. Keep it in a Tupperware container. Like keep it in its package, but in a Tupperware container, so the rats and mice don't get at it. And this stuff keeps forever, and it fills you up. Now, the staples like rice and pasta, they're starches. The other thing I would get is powdered potatoes. So now you've got stuff that will fill your belly up. The next thing you need is something to flavor it with. So what I buy then is cans of gravy, cans of beef stew or something like that. If I take a can of beef stew and pour half of it over a big bowl of rice, I've got like beef fried rice. I'll double my intake of calories. It'll make the rice taste good. It will extend the use of that can of beef stew. You know what I mean? So instead of eating a whole can of beef stew today, I can eat half a can plus a cup of steamed rice, and now I've got, I'm just as full as if I ate the whole can, and then tomorrow I can do it again. So get the staples, and then think of things that would go with the staples to make them taste better. Bouillon cubes, I like bouillon cubes. They're great because, you can always... whatever you can rummage, maybe dandelion leaves or something like that. Well, you boil it in some water. You add a bouillon cube to it, and then some ramen noodles, and you've got spinach noodle rice. So get the starches. So rice, pasta, powdered potatoes. Flour too. Um, I know you get the wheat belly, but during an emergency situation, I think the most important thing is that your belly is full all the time. So if you get flour, also get some baking powder, the yeast, so that you can make levied bread. Even without that, and also cans of lard. You need grease, as much grease as you can. You're going to need to fry it. But also, if you mix the lard with the flour and some water and some milk and some powdered milk, and I mean, you can make dough that you wrap around the stick and stick into the campfire, and it's delicious bread. That's how you cook it. You wrap the dough around the stick and you put it in the campfire like a marshmallow, and it'll bake the bread. And you just peel it off the stick, and as long as you got lots of lard in it, that bread will taste good. But if you don't have the lard, it's not going to taste good. So lard, oil, and powdered gravy mixes. They keep forever. All you need to do is add hot water to it, and then the gravy mix and whatever you can, even if you have to shoot a squirrel, if you, fry up that squirrel with brown gravy mix and pour it all over rice, you'll be fine. It tastes great. I guess we could summarize it, and that is stay home, practice personal hygiene, don't touch your face, wash your hands often, wear a mask. Okay, it can't hurt, probably won't help, but maybe it'll help a little bit. I don't know. And wait for it to blow over. That's the best advice. But you have to be able to be self-sufficient in your own home for 3 weeks, hopefully 3 months. And then you'll be fine. And practice social distancing. And that's all you can do. There's no cure for it. There's no treatment for it. There's no foolproof unless you want to wear a hazmat suit when you go out. There's no foolproof method to prevent being infected other than staying at home.